Y'all, today's video is an original recipe. Come on. Welcome to Highfalutin Low Carb, the weekly web series where we find, test, and sometimes create the best low carb recipes this crazy internet has to offer. Today, we're doing an original recipe for buffalo chicken spaghetti squash. Stay tuned. All right, guys, low carb buffalo chicken spaghetti squash. Now, I've been seeing these recipes pop up all over social media for buffalo chicken spaghetti, and it's made with traditional wheat pasta, and I wanted to join the party too, so I've decided to create a low carb version using spaghetti squash. So we're gonna tackle that now, but I wanna thank Texas Pete for sponsoring this video. Texas Pete, as you probably know, the traditional Texas Pete hot sauce that we all know and love, it's a lot of flavor with a lot of heat, but they have a tremendous amount of products, and today we're going to be using their buffalo wing sauce. Specifically, I'm going to use the extra mild because while I like heat, I want flavor as much as the heat, and their products really bring that. I mean, you don't realize they've got dry rub and barbecue sauce, slew of barbecue sauces and salsas and sriracha and cocktail sauce. Texas Pete kind of has a version of a lot of these things that have a lot of bold flavor and a lot of bold heat. So we're going to be using the extra mild wing sauce today, but I have a couple of the options for you as well using the traditional, just old-fashioned, original Texas Pete hot sauce. So Texas Pete, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. It's sponsorships like yours keep channels like mine on the air, and when you asked me to create an original recipe for you, I jumped at the chance. So, all right, guys, let's get started. Okay, so let's get started. We've got a couple of things that we need to prepare before we can assemble this final dish into the casserole pan we're going to use. The first of those is to roast this big guy here. It's the spaghetti squash. If you've not played with them, they're easy to deal with. The most intimidating part is slicing it in half, and the easiest way for me to do that is take a very sharp knife, and the way I handle it is I just start right on top, get your fingers out of the way, push it all the way through, right? Holding the squash, just pull your knife down. Now spin it, put it back in that same hole you made, right? Touch the board, and then go the other way. Cuts right through, keeps your hands safe. And now we've got to get rid of this stuff here in the middle. So take a spoon and a bowl, and you're just gonna gently scrape out as much of this middle sinewy type of material in the seeds. All right, so let's just take care of that. Okay, once you've got all the pulp and stuff out of the middle of the squash, we're gonna roast these. I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil here, and we're not gonna use all of this. We're gonna use the rest of this on our chicken in a moment. But with a brush, just brush all of this well with olive oil. We're gonna put this in the oven at 350 degrees, preheat the oven, and this is gonna cook for 45 minutes on its on the cut side. So right, once you get olive oil on there, flip them over onto a parchment lined baking sheet, and then we're gonna throw these in the oven. All right, so while our squash is roasting, we're gonna take care of our chicken. And this is 2 pounds, roughly 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You can use breasts, but I prefer chicken thighs for their flavor and their moistness. So that's what we're gonna do now. So we're gonna create a little bath for them to sort of poach in. You can certainly grill this, but I find for this particular recipe, poaching them in some chicken broth gives you the most flavorful and moist shredded chicken, because that's what we're going for here in our spaghetti. So over some heat, about medium-high heat, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of low sodium chicken broth. And we're gonna save this later after we cook our chicken. The leftover oil that we had 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're gonna use the leftover oil that didn't go in our, there's a little grain of, there's a little strand of squash in there. Let's get him out. And to our poaching liquid, we're gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. And then we're just gonna throw our chicken thighs in and bring this to a boil. When it comes to a boil, we're gonna cover it, put the heat on low, and let this cook for 20 minutes on low heat. We're not trying to cook it to death. All right, let me go wash my hands, hold on. All right, so we're just gonna bring this to a boil, as I said. As soon as it does start to boil, which you can see happening now, we're gonna cover it, reduce it to low, and then I'm gonna prep the rest of our ingredients. Our squash and our chicken is gonna cook, and I'll just meet you back here in just a few minutes, all right? All right, guys, so we're back. Our squash is cooling on the stove back there because we got to be able to handle it so we can shred the noodles out of the spaghetti squash. And our chicken is done. All right, let's take this out, and we're going to reserve this flavorful cooking liquid, this broth, because we may or may not need it later in the recipe, and I'll give you a tip with that as well. So let's just take up this chicken. We're going to put this in a large bowl because we're going to shred that. But like I said, we definitely want to keep our flavorful cooking broth. So I'm going to carefully pour this into a gravy separator. We can pour off some of the fat off of the top if you don't want to eat that fat. And this is going to go back on the heat for a moment. And we're just going to put this aside to let it separate. Okay, so now in that same pan, you can just put this back over medium heat. And I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter. This is 4 tablespoons total. We're going to use the other 2 tablespoons later in the recipe. So let this get melted, and we are going to saute. This is 1 medium-sized red bell pepper. Okay, so that's going to go in here with the butter. We want all that good flavor. If there's any chicken bits on the bottom stuck to the pan, keep it in there and scrape it up. That fond is very flavorful. All right, so this is going to saute here in the butter for about 5 or 6 minutes, just until it's soft, and we're going to shred our chicken. Now, this can be done with a couple of forks and doing it by hand, but I'm going to use the old trick with the hand mixer. You can do it in a stand mixer too. It makes quick work of shredding meat, and you don't have to worry about burning a hand. So we'll do that now, and I'll meet you right back here in about 5 minutes. All right, guys, so as you can see, our chicken is shredded. Our red bell pepper, we've taken it out of the pan with the butter and just poured it right there on top. And now we're gonna put together our sauce real quick, but we need to do it over a little bit of heat because we're gonna melt some things. So over medium-low heat, we're gonna put in a cup of the buffalo sauce. And this is gonna go in, you're gonna use a cup of this, okay? So this is gonna go in over our heat so we can melt in some of the other good things. And Texas Pete's slogan is sauce like you mean it, and it's about doing things that you're passionate about and with tenacity. And when I smell all of this and see all this creamy, wonderful stuff, that absolutely explains the way I feel about this recipe. So we're definitely saucing like we mean it. Now, this is also going to be 2 tablespoons of butter and 3 ounces of full-fat cream cheese. And this is why we're putting this over heat, just so we can melt this. So we're going to melt this down and be right back. Okay, so we've got our sauce here, and as you can see, the vinegar in the wing sauce sort of makes the cream cheese curdle. That's not a problem at all. It's all going into a casserole pan anyway. So, all right, this goes right in here, and I'm going to tell you that I use the wing sauce, right? They have, if you're eating low carb, both of the Texas Pete wing sauces, the original and the extra mild, are low carb. But if you're eating strict keto, then what I would do, I'll give it another recipe in the recipe below. I'll let you know how to make your own buffalo sauce using just the original Texas Pete hot sauce. It's super easy. It's a half a cup of Texas Pete, and then you take the reserved chicken cooking broth, remember, that we had, a half a cup of that, and 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter and a little, maybe a teaspoon of sugar-free sweetener, and that makes a delicious sauce. But I eat low carb, and I enjoy the extra mild buffalo sauce. So we're just gonna kind of toss this just quickly to moisten that up. And now we've got to shred our spaghetti squash into this bowl. So using a fork, see how beautiful those, quote, noodles are. So we're just going to do this and just get this right into this bowl. And if you're super fancy and wanted to serve this in the stuffed shell, you certainly could. You would just hang on to this shell, and instead of putting this in a casserole pan in the oven, you would put it back in this shell and put it in the oven. But I think for a family meal, this serves 6 people, it's probably easier to just put it in a casserole pan. But for my thumbnail, you're probably going to see that I put it in one of these roasted shells because it just looks impressive. So we're going to do that now, and I'll speed this up so you don't have to sit and watch it. All right, so now we're just ready to toss this. So gently mix this up. Now we're also going to add to this, we're going to add in 1 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. This just sort of gives you the nice gooey, stringy internal cheese. We're going to add, this is 4 green onions that have been sliced. And toss this well. We're going to put this in a 9x13 casserole pan carefully. Oh yes. And just distribute it evenly. Okay, so now we're going to sprinkle just a little more, about a 1/2 cup of mozzarella on top. And I also like to put on about a 1/2 cup of blue cheese crumbles to really go in, all in on that buffalo flavor, buffalo chicken flavor. So about a 1/2 cup, just eyeball it. You don't want to cover it much. That blue cheese is, you know, pungent flavor, but it does add a beautiful little kick. There we go. Now, this goes back in that 350-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes, just until it warms all the way through and the cheeses melt. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll meet you right back here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, we are back. Look at that. Oh my gosh, it looks so great. I wish you could smell it. It is so flavorful in here. All right, so now let's test this. I'm going to go over the nutritional information and the recipe. All of this is going to be on my website at www.highfalutinlowcarb.com. Go there, it'll be right on the front page. Now, before we do the tasting, I just need to say again, thank you to Texas Pete for partnering with me to create this recipe. I was tickled to be a part of the Texas Pete family for this. I always keep a bottle of the original Texas Pete hot sauce. It's great to spruce up takeout and leftovers and delivery food. It's just, I don't like hot sauces that are just a slap of heat and nothing else. I like some flavor, and the Texas Pete products are truly a great combination of flavor and heat. So thank you, Texas Pete. All right, look at this, look at this. I'm gonna come in and get a little scoop of this. I might need a bigger spoon. So this makes 6 servings. I'll leave like I said, the full nutritional information will be on my website, so you can check it out there. Okay. Y'all, look at that. So creamy, so yummy. All right, it's hot, and y'all know me. I like to burn my face off on this stuff. So let's see what we got. Yeah. Y'all, that is so creamy, and so the tang of the hot sauce, the tang of the blue cheese, the little crispy bits of the bell pepper, it all just works so well. Y'all, I hate to brag. But that is so good. So be sure to check the recipe out. If you do make it, come back to this video and leave a comment below and let me know what you think. So low carb buffalo chicken spaghetti, can it be done? So I'm glad I got to join the party on that. So thanks for joining me, guys. I say it every time, these videos are a way for me to maintain my low carb way of eating. And looking into the end of that camera as often as I can helps keep me honest. So I appreciate that you have come along for the journey. Thanks again to Texas Pete for sponsoring this. Be sure to check out their website below for the 20% off with using their code. And also to my Patreon members, if you don't know what Patreon is, think of it as the tip jar for the internet. It allows people like you who enjoy what people like me do here on YouTube. You can give $1 or $2 a month just to sort of keep the train on the tracks, as it were. So you're gonna see all their names starting to scroll here. These are my true rock stars. Without them, none of this would be possible. So join the party over there at patreon.com. All right, guys, I love you, and I'll see you next week for another low carb video. Bye-bye.